Welcome to this episode of our program, Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing an important Arab file. Today we'll be speaking about the developments in Lebanon. We've seen on last Wednesday a donors conference that was held upon the initiative or the invitation of the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and the world body, the UN, or under the sponsor or the auspices of the UN. During this conference that was held virtually, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi made a speech in which he called on the international community to exert its utmost effort in order to support Lebanon in its very critical time. Lebanon has been in a very critical moment during this juncture in its history, and there is a governmental or a government vacuum that is leading to the instability and the insecurity of Lebanon. We'll be speaking about Lebanon and the development in Lebanon in our episode. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stressed Egypt's constant stance for preserving its historical rights of the River Nile and its water security. President al-Sisi asserted the importance of continuing negotiations over the Ethiopian dam issue to reach a comprehensive legal and binding deal for the measures of filling and operation of the dam. The president's remarks came during his meeting with Algerian Minister for Foreign Affairs, where the meeting tackled means of boosting bilateral ties in various domains during the coming period. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmed Hafez said that Cairo was closely following up on the developments in Tunisia and fully supporting the Tunisian people and their legitimate ambitions. In a statement, Hafez said that Cairo trusted the wisdom and ability of the Tunisian presidency to let the country pass this crisis as soon as possible. He said that it was necessary to avoid escalation or violence against the state institutions to preserve the interests and security of the Tunisian people. Tunisian President Kais Saied said there was no turning back from his decisions to freeze the parliament and assume executive power. Speaking in a video published by his office, Saied also rejected calls for talks over the crisis, saying that there was no dialogue except with the honest and no dialogue was possible with cancer cells. Some 11 days after his intervention, Saied has not named a new prime minister, announced any steps to end the emergency, or declared his longer-term intentions. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held a telephone talk with his counterpart of Italy, Luigi Di Maio, where he stressed the need to stick to the outcomes of Libyan political dialogue forum held recently in Geneva. Shoukry stressed the importance of holding the Libyan elections on time and getting the foreign troops out of the country, welcoming Libya's move to open the coastal road connecting Misrata with Sirte. Concerning the situation in Tunisia, Shoukry expressed Egypt's support for Tunisian President Kais Saied's measure to protect the state's institutions and overcome critical crisis. The United Nations Delegation for Libyan Support announced that the Coordination Committee of the Political Dialogue failed to reach an agreement on constitutional rules for elections. In a statement, the delegation said that the meetings of the Libyan parties aim to reach a constitutional base for the coming national elections on the 24th of December. The statement added that the committee members asserted that chances to reach a compromise for one proposal have been exhausted. Lebanon said that it intended to submit an urgent complaint to the United Nations Security Council over Israel's aggression on its land. Lebanese President Michel Aoun said that filing a complaint is inevitable to stop Israel's continuous aggression on his country. He noted that the Israeli aggression represented a flagrant violation to the United Nations Security Council's resolution number 1701 and a direct threat to the stability and security in South Lebanon. He considered Israeli strikes on Lebanon's villages in the early hours of Thursday the first of its kind since 2006, marking an escalation and a change of tactics by Israel.
Right, welcome back. And speaking about the developments in Lebanon and the donors conference that was held last week, we have with us over the phone to highlight the issue Dr. Hassan Wagee, Professor of Political Science at Al-Azhar University. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Right, we're speaking about the developments in Lebanon. Let me take you reading to the scene in Lebanon at the very beginning.
Yes, actually the situation in Lebanon is dangerous. Of course, every analytical circle all over the media, all over the world, indicating that it is really fraught with a lot of danger. And escalation of the situation could be there in this 1 minute or another. So this is in a very tough time for Lebanon, economic situation, no government, a lot of problems. But again, the equation of some people in Lebanon are divided among the two views regarding the situation. One view, which is there is no time for, or this is not the right time for any escalation with Israel. And there is another view, like Tariq Berri, who is the chair of the what is there as National Assembly, says resistance and the deterrence of Israel. Israel has escalated by intervening with its air force, which did not happen a long time ago. And there is some kind of some plans on the Israeli side to get to Iran through one of its arms, which is Hezbollah. This is another analysis of the situation. Israel wants to retaliate when it comes to retaliation game between Israel and Iran. Maybe Israel choose to retaliate through Lebanon. And here, the Lebanese are gathering to resist. And
Dr. Wagee?
That the deterrence is very important for the Israelis.
Dr. Wagee, we are seeing a vacuum in the government, but here you pinpointed your finger on a very important issue, and let me ask you from another perspective.
Yes.
Is the problem inside Lebanon is because of the differences among the internal parties, or because of the differences or confrontations between foreign parties with their alliance or allies inside Lebanon?
Actually, this is a very complicated question, and the answer is both. You know, you have real serious internal problem. If Lebanon is out of any Middle East games, strategic games, there are some real problems between the government and the people, between the people who really want another different government. There is one transitional government now. So this kind of analysis is still exists. But when it comes that Lebanon used to be a hub for foreign interventions and for getting a theater for retaliation, that is a long history of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. If we get back to the conference that was held last Wednesday upon an initiative and the invitation of the French president, but also that gathered pace rather, and has gathered more than 40 countries and multilateral world bodies. How do you view the timing of such a conference and the participants in it?
Yeah, the time of the conference is to deal with Lebanon internal problems, but there is this external threat that really is coming and showing itself. So I think, yeah, the timing is natural to happen, but the situation.
We're speaking here about a donors.
Circumstances.
We're speaking here about a donors conference. We're speaking about a devastated economy with in Lebanon because of many factors: the explosions, the instability, and the pandemic, the world pandemic. So, a donors conference at this very particular time.
I think it's good for Lebanon to have a donor conference to help make Lebanese survive economic problem. Of course, this is very needed.
Mm-hmm. So the pledge of the world community and to help Lebanon, and how far would that reflect on Lebanon?
Yeah, actually, there are two forces are at work here. Yes, there is an intervention which is benign, which Lebanon needs to stand up against the challenges and the economic problems, and as you said, the devastated government or the very shallow existing transitional government. Yes, this is one force, as we said, but there are some other forces in the world who really like very much to choose Lebanon to be a hub for escalating the conflict, especially when it comes to this ground challenge between U.S. and Iran. So here and Israel, of course, there. I think these are the two forces at work now.
Finally here, if I may take your reading into the statements of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi during this virtual conference and his call upon the international community to support Lebanon.
Yes, of course, this is a wise statement by the President, as we used to listen from him. And I think that Egypt is very keen to get the entire area stabilized. We would like to have the President and the Egyptian leadership work very hard to have a win-win situation in all in the entire area, not only within Egypt and its own problems with external power that we have seen in the Renaissance, the so-called Renaissance Dam and crisis, etc. But Egypt has a role to play in the entire area. Egypt is regaining its role, and its role is very benign and very peaceful, very wise. And Egypt wants de-escalation of all kinds of conflicts, rather than getting conflicts out of hand or escalated by those who really have some agenda.
Right, indeed, Dr. Hassan Wagih, a professor of political science at Azhar University. Thank you so much for being with us over the phone. And indeed, Egypt's constant policy and diplomacy and foreign extension to help has always been based on trying to find a political solution to de-escalate positions in crises in the region. Before we move on with our discussion, let's first have this report and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received on Wednesday the commander of the Lebanese army, General Joseph Aoun. During the meeting, President al-Sisi welcomed Aoun and underlined the deep relations that bind the two nations at an official and popular level. The President also expressed Egypt's keenness to support the security, stability and safety of Lebanon and its national interest. The President hailed the essential role played by the Lebanese National Army to maintain stability and balance in the country within the framework of what the armies represent as a backbone for the cohesion and stability of the nations. For his part, General Aoun conveyed the greetings of Lebanese President Michel Aoun to President Sisi and expressed Lebanon's keenness to strengthen the historic and deep relations between the two countries. He extended his appreciation to the central role played by Egypt to maintain stability in the Arab and the Middle East region. In another development, President Sisi also participated in the third international conference in support of Lebanon on Wednesday. President Sisi sent a message to the Lebanese people confirming that their country has always been a beacon of art, culture, and creativity and is capable of overcoming the current crisis and of regaining its prosperity. The president reiterated that Egypt's hands are always extended to the international community with the aim of solidifying Lebanon and building a better future for its people. On the political front, Lebanese Prime Minister-designate Najib Mikati said that progress, albeit slow, had been achieved towards forming a cabinet in Lebanon. Lebanon has been without a government since Prime Minister Hassan Diab quit in the aftermath of the catastrophic August 4, 2020 port explosion.
Right, welcome back, and to continue on with our discussion on the developments in Lebanon, we have with us over the phone Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon to you, Your Excellency. Hello?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So good afternoon to you, Ambassador Bayoumi.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. So we're speaking about the developments in Lebanon, and we're speaking about this conference or donors conference that came on the initiative of the French president. Let me take your reading to such an initiative and the importance and significance of such a conference at this very particular timing passing by Lebanon.
It is very important. Lebanon is very important brother country to Egypt since ages. Since Ahmos, the king of Egypt, went there 2,000 years before Christ to attack the Hussein there. Since Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi went there to defend our area against the Crusaders. Since Ibrahim Pasha went to Lebanon. Since Gamal Abdel Nasser hosts all the leaders of Lebanon in order to put them in order. I want you to I think you know already, that there are 5 statues of Gamal Abdel Nasser in Beirut. So this is the real relations. Egypt always hosts our Lebanese brothers. Whenever there are problems, we have tens of thousands of Lebanese living with us in Egypt. Now we have a serious problem. It is a sort of a repeated problem between the different parties. But this time there is a very delicate problem, which is the financial problem, the economy of Lebanon, because Lebanese were wise enough not to destroy their economy. This time it is serious. There is lack of liquidity. The rate of interest or rate of the exchange for the Lebanese lira deteriorated. Just to give you an idea, first time I went to Lebanon, it was 1970. $1 equal by that time 2.5 liras. It became a couple of years ago to 1,500. Now it exceeded 10,000 liras for $1. So this shows a sort of a measurement how serious is the problem. So now we are facing different problems and with different dimensions. First, of course, the difference between parties, between factions, and this is old enough. The new thing is corruption. We have a problem that the money in the central bank and the money in the banks was not in safe. This is, I don't know exactly how to deal with this. Liquidity as a third problem. and thanks to President of France, because France has traditional and historical relations with Lebanon, they invited all the friends and brothers of Lebanon for this conference. How to, at first, the conference will provide liquidity to make the economic life in Lebanon go ahead, and we hope that this will take place. Then we have to convince all the parties in Lebanon that none of them will win this battle at all unless they raise the interests of their country over any interest of parties and so on. I hope this will end with a happy ending, although I'm a little bit hesitant to be optimistic for a change, although I am generally optimistic person.
Ambassador Bayoumi, well, sir, here you just focused on the main problem, and there is this caught, the hen or the egg. So the vacuum in the government that should be dealt with first, or the economic crunch, or what is the important part to start with, because both areas are really in crisis. And I'm speaking here, they are destroying Lebanon by all means. The governmental vacuum and the inability to form a government in order to put Lebanon on the right path towards security and stability, and the economic crunch, which is putting the Lebanese people in jeopardy and is devastating not just the Lebanese territories, but rather the daily lives of the Lebanese. So you're reading to this.
If you allow me to put priorities for these very complicated problems, I would put immediately the lack of liquidity. It seems that people are not feeling safe for their remittances and their accounts in the banking system. And it seems that there was a sort of drawing a lot of money out of the country. This is the problem number one. That's why it was raised during the conference that we have to allocate something like $400 million to stop this disaster. Thank God that $400 million for the international community is not that big. If we do that, then immediately we have to find a government, because who will manage the situation there? And there is a sort of stubbornness between different parties, the president from one side, Saad al-Hariri from another, Hezbollah third, and so on. So it needs acceptable faith like Egypt and our president in order to make everybody sure that there is a guarantee for any agreement take place among all those people. Then we come to security also, because it seems that you are not well secured if you live in Beirut. I was in Beirut 1 year ago, but really I did not feel safe. So those are the three priorities now: finance, government, security.
If we speak about security and stability of Lebanon, then we have to address also the foreign interference, because you spoke about the internal parties and you mentioned the names Saad al-Hariri, Hezbollah, and parties, other existing parties, including, of course, the Lebanese presidency, and all parties concerned with the security of Lebanon. But there are also foreign parties, and I mean here the internal parties are supported by their external parties. So how do you view such a conflict or an external conflict that exists on an Arab land, and how far has Egypt called once and twice and thrice to end foreign interference for the stability of the region?
Although I put the priority is finance, then government, then security, but the most dangerous element is security. And I am afraid to tell you, because you are relatively younger than me, that security was maintained whenever foreign forces intervene in Lebanon. We did this when Ibrahim Pasha went with the Egyptian army. We did that when Syria took responsibility for the security in Beirut. I have witnessed this myself, where the Syrian army was there. Then the American army was replaced somehow, and with a disastrous result. Now Hezbollah is, with Iran in the background, is trying to be in full command of the country, while the national army wouldn't allow this. We need, I'm sorry to say that, we need a foreign force, maybe the United Nations or multilateral forces from different countries, maybe Arab countries, would go there to settle the security. Otherwise, I don't see any escape for this problem. Security is really a serious problem.
Mentioning security, and we have seen a strike by Israel just a few days ago on Lebanon, and it said, or Israel said, that it's true because of some of the missiles that went into its lands. How do you view such actions, and why now?
I will surprise you by saying that the fear from Israel is the least thing I would take in consideration. Israel is behaving quite well, and since we have agreements with Israel, they are ready to respect the agreement.
But actually, Ambassador Bayoumi, I'm not concerned with how Israel is acting, but rather more about the missiles that were hit, particularly at this time.
This is my point, that I think Israel will cooperate, and Egypt there is a safety valve for this, and Jordan also. But Israel wouldn't stay silent while Hezbollah is rocketing Israel. Although the rockets are not hitting any important thing.
Exactly.
But I remember Fuad al-Saniura, when it happened before, he told us if we did know the results of such action by rocketing Israel without any reason, and how they destroyed every small bridge in Lebanon by that time, the cost is heavy. Why should we create the wrong enemy? Why should we create the wrong battle? Let us concentrate about what we have to fight inside our country to establish a government, to come to economic stability, to come to security among the Lebanese themselves. Mm-hmm. But from now and then, I think that somebody trying to make another battle with Israel in order to make us not to concentrate on the real problem in Lebanon.
Right. If I may take your reading to statements by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, because during his speech at this virtual or this conference that was held in a virtual way, President Sisi gave three important messages: one to the international community, the other to the Arab world, and the third was an urge to the Lebanese people. Your reading to the statements of President Sisi.
I am so satisfied with the presence of our president, because Egypt shouldn't be absent from such an event. And the message from our president is the message of Egypt, that we are there, we are ready to do whatever it takes in order to bring Lebanon to safe situation. And I think that the message of our president's speech was very clear. This is very good for Lebanon. This is very good for friendly countries like France. And I hope that this will make the Lebanese themselves depend on the word of Egypt, the president of Egypt, and other friendly brotherly countries in order to come to reason among Lebanese themselves. The presence of Egypt is very important there.
If I may ask you about the role that Egypt has been playing, the role that Egypt is keen on playing at this particular coming time, the previous one and the present one.
We are always a good advisor, and we do not have any interest except to see Lebanon in a very good situation. We have always mingled between the Egyptian people and the Lebanese, and we do not consider Lebanese as foreign or brother. They are part of us. One day, decades or centuries before, it was part of Egypt during the time of Muhammad Ali Pasha and Ibrahim Pasha. So Egypt can give its advice, its experience, its good foreign relations with everybody, whether on the international or regional with Europe and the Arab League, and also directly the bilateral relations between the leadership in Egypt and the leadership of Lebanon. Let us hope that they will come to be good listeners to our advice, because we have a lot to say there, and we have a lot to guarantee for all the parties in Lebanon.
At this International Donors Conference, we've seen some of the big powers and big world powers and big regional powers, including the US, France, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and world bodies, including the UN and the IMF and the World Bank. We've seen all coming together. What is requested from the international community at this very particular time in order to be able to support Lebanon past this period?
We seriously need everybody. We need the international money organizations, financial organizations, IMF, World Bank, and else, in order to allocate finance for this disastrous situation. We need the Saudis, because the Saudis are investing hugely in Lebanon, and we hope that the Saudis will not start to hesitate about their investment in Lebanon. More than that, we ask the whole Gulf countries to come and allocate money as investment in Lebanon. We need also countries in the size of the United States or France, Germany, EU in general, in order to hold the situation, in order to allocate finance, whether for new investment or to keep the banking system running as it should be.
I guess we are in need of all the help of all parties,
Exactly.
inside and outside, in order for Lebanon to get back to or on track. We don't really need the devastation of another Arab country. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us over the phone and for your great input as usual. Just to understand the situation that Lebanon really is facing at this very particular time, we have to understand that there is a shortage of electricity, of medicine, basic supplies. That comes to a teetering economy that is devastation and hit because of many reasons that started with this explosion, the devastation, or the economy at its worst pass. We're speaking here about a US dollar equating to 1,514 Lebanese pounds. That led to fuel prices to increase by more than a third. We are speaking about foreign parties that are having a conflict on an Arab land. We are speaking about a very serious situation. We do hope for our Lebanese brothers to come to reason and to prioritize the interests of their own country and put aside their differences and come to reason. I think that brings us to the end of this episode of our program Arab Affairs. Until next Saturday, it's goodbye.